Hello, welcome back to ELT Under the Covers, where we, English language professionals, give our reactions of the good and the bad that we see in regards to teaching within these videos of these classroom scenarios and scenes that we pick up from the internet. But before we get into that, first let's do some introductions. I'm Neil of Team Teacher. I forgot who I was.
You got the name of your own stuff.
And I'm with Rich Rathbone the Third.
Hello, everybody. My name's Rich Professor.
Oh, I see what you did there. You got it mixed around.
Yeah, it was callback humor to 10 seconds ago. Is that how callback humor works? Hello, everybody. My name is Relentless Rich, and I am here to give you there's a fly. There's a fly in my room. We're gonna talk about some English teaching stuff and react to some videos.
Yes, we are.
Something new. We've never done it before.
Just bear with us as we find our feet with this. Today we are going to be looking at early childhood education, English related. It's from Poorna Publications. It's an Indian education outlet, I believe, and we're going to be looking at this 15-year veteran of early education, Danya Rathish, I think is how you say it. But we've just got a little short one here.
Probably not.
Probably not at all. Probably not at all, and I apologise, and I will whip myself later if I did get it wrong, if I didn't as well. And she's going to be teaching these little kids, and we're going to see a comment on how she does that. Is it good? Is it bad? What would we do different? What are we stealing? Let's check it out.
Stealing. Okay.
Children, story time. Today Auntie is going to tell you a story of an animal.
Oh, it's a story class.
Suddenly, a sound was heard. K, k, k. Yeah. And that animal ran to the place where the sound was coming from. K, 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 k. See. Suddenly another sound was heard. What was that? T, 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 t. Who was making t, 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 t sound? And it was T. And at the very moment, another sound. Sa. Yes. Tuka. Is that my name? No. Act. Act. Is that a name?
No.
No, that is also not his name. Act. What is this? Act. Yeah. Wow.
I have problems with this.
You have problems with this?
Yes, I have some problems.
Okay. All right.
A whole load of problems. I was just trying to wait to see exactly where she was going with it, but I have a lot of problems with this. First of all, I think there's limited reason to directly link in the way she's doing there, the way that you say a letter and the one of the phonemic sounds associated with that letter. Although it does make more sense with the consonants than the vowels. But to say to these kids, this is A and the sound is A, just don't think that that's going to good places, because obviously it could be all kinds. And even the C there, that's in this case is the sound K. We know that a C could also be a S, can't it? It could be like a T if it's in church, right? So I think, first of all, I have an issue with that I think there's some limited use in that. And the other thing I have a problem with, I'm getting distracted by dogs barking now. The other thing I have a problem with is that she isn't actually correctly pronouncing the phoneme.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because she said k a t, and technically, if you put those words together, that would get kata. That would be the word kata, right? Because she said k a t, kata,
Yeah.
right? If you just mangle those words together.
Yeah.
So it's there's not a lot of logic there either. Now, I have heard some arguments as to why you would throw a schwa onto an unvoiced sound. Linguists do it a lot. So linguists will tend not to say that the sound is k. They'll say, "Oh, we're talking about k today," right? But they know that it's not. That's not really the sound. Really, the sound is k. But it's just because if you're having to do k and t all the time, then it's not very loud and it can be difficult for people to really hear what you're saying. So that's why you might do that. But I think if you're going to dive into phonemics with kids in this way, which I think there is some rationale for, not something I know a lot about because I don't really teach this age group. And the phonemics that I tend to do will be with older kids. I'll do them with primary, but, I tend to teach 8 and 9-year-olds if it's primary, not, 5-year-olds or whatever these guys are. If you're going to do it with those kids, then I think you've got to be doing the k, a, t, cat, right? Not k, a, t, cat, right? And she didn't say cat, did she? She said cat. So she said k, a, t. That makes the sound, that makes the word cat, which it doesn't. So you've just exchanged one set of non-phonemic sounds that represent the letters CAT for another, which is KAT, which again doesn't help them. So now they're learning 3. They're learning CAT, KAT, and KAT. So
what's even more issue is if you were to do this with other like Asian languages as well, where they tend to have I can't remember what it's technically called, but 2 sounds together. So they don't have like a hard consonant. So they will say katu. Like if you're Japanese. Right. Yeah, so it kind of just lends into that. It's going to get them really confused where you're trying to correct it, but you're pronouncing it. You've taught it initially incorrect anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What is happening there, by the way, is that it's in those languages they don't have a fully unvoiced version of that consonant.
Yeah.
So therefore they produce a voiced version of it, and it sounds to us like kata. But to them, they won't actually know the difference because they'll have never heard the difference before, or they'll never produce it. Your brain approximates to the sounds of your own language. You have to teach someone to hear the difference. And what you actually start to learn is that when we say voiced and unvoiced, it's actually a scale. It's not a binary.
Yeah.
And some languages will have actually 3, and in fact, we kind of do in English, right? Because I can say bat, bad, and badder. And really, this ending sound on all 3 of those is kind of the same position, the same mouth position. It's just that I add more voice with bat. You don't really have any voice at the end, or you have very little. And then bad, you've got the d at the end, and then badder, you just got more voice at the end.
Yeah.
So you could just distinguish that as 3 levels of voice.
Yeah, and we kind of like write it off as accent variations and shit like that.
Well, everyone does in I mean it's funny because everyone does in every language, and you kind of if you do want to like break the fourth wall with your students, you end up sort of saying the same stuff to students kind of over and over again, like not the same student but different students, because you always get the same thing. Like people will come in and say they might say something like, "There's no difference between those 2 things. What are you talking about?" Or
and you're like,
oh, that's an accent. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to destroy your mind.
I guess it's always good not to, not to overcomplicate it too much, though, because if we go all the way down the linguistic route, then we start getting into all kinds of cans of worms about, different accent. They don't even call them accents; they just call them variants, different variants. Even languages are different variants to linguists, and then the whole thing becomes very complicated. So we're not going to go that far. Well, I'm personally not going to go that far anyway. But I am going to say I am not keen on what's happening at the moment.
I understand where you're going with it. One thing that I would like to go down and explore is her approach to teaching. Yes, she's got it, phonemics, it's off, but can we talk a little bit about her approach right now? Because she comes in initially and she's this animal is lost. Can you help me find it? I think when you're trying to get children on board with an activity and they become the protagonists within the story, then instantly you've got them hooked. It is a kind of a Keddy kind of esque way, Keddy-esque, like Kaposky or whatever, a way of kind of doing it. And I do like that kind of sequence of what is that sound? What is that sound?
Yeah.
It could be done better, but I like that track of thought.
No, I totally agree. Actually, I think what we're talking about there is kind of, it's a bit of you're right. It's like her approach, isn't it? It's the way she is as a teacher and the way that she structured this lesson seems to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, she is quite compelling. And in fact, the kids are jumping over the desks to try and give her answers to the things that she's saying. Mm-hmm. They seem really engaged, So my criticism was relating to the phonemic point that she's teaching. Mm-hmm. But I think how she is as a teacher, I think, I would agree it's really good. I think technically what she's done with that the story stuff, it's called narrative contextualization.
Okay.
Which might just be a rip-off of Jamie. Obviously, Jamie didn't invent storytelling, though, But
he might as well have.
But
Shout out to Jamie.
I heard that from a fellow I worked at the British Council. What's his name? Martin Goosey, and I'm not sure, but I think it was his thing. He certainly didn't. I certainly don't remember him referencing anyone when he talked to us about that. But so he presented it as if it was his own thing anyway. With narrative contextualization, which is just, you involve the kids in the story, which is exactly what she did, because she said there's a missing animal and we need to find it. It's not even I'm going to tell you a story. It's like there is an animal and we need to find it. You guys have got to be animal detectives, So it's like complete immersion within it. Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it. One thing that I want to point out as well is obviously these kids have got a decent level of English. Maybe what she's trying to do is basically teach them to read in a way, because obviously they understand what she's saying. It's just that they don't know how to, read English, or maybe don't know certain sounds, and that's probably about right for them. But my point was that I'm not sure how well this would go down if you're doing a beginner's class. You'd have to do a lot of changing for that. The question that I do have for you though, and if you don't have that answer to this, because I don't think that many people do, is what is the best way to tackle teaching someone to read, to teaching someone these phonics, these sounds, when they're like at this age, when they don't even know the sounds in maybe their own language? Because we have all these curriculums out there of teach these kids phonics, and they get thrown into all these classes and stuff, and often you get that same problem that you mentioned right at the beginning of this is a letter sound, this is how it actually said, but then we put it together and it sounds
Yeah.
something different. It's a
Yeah.
whole bag of cats.
Well, I would actually be tempted not to do it brick by brick in the way that they're doing here. I think a brick by brick approach, I think, is likely to be more useful, if at all. Actually, I'm not sure. Would I ever really use a brick by brick approach with this sort of stuff? I'm not sure, but I think maybe with adults, because they kind of like rules and they like to apply rules. What does this sound combination normally make? But I think with kids, I would tend to focus on like phrasal chunks, pronunciation practice of phrasal chunks, and I'd really try to drill it in, like the kind of natural part of it. So saying stuff like, we're going to help the cat today. We're going to help the cat today. And then, they'll go, we're going to help the... And you go, no. We're going to help the cat today. You get them to clap as well. We're going to help the cat today. And then they might say like, we're going to help the cat today. And you go, okay, that's better. But, then it was like, so about, we're going to help the cat today. We're going to help the cat today. Okay, so just get them a bit more natural with it. And then some sort of pair-based or group-based phonemic activity, where they have like a list of phrases that you've drilled. They go around and they say, can you help me find my cat? And the other person says, I don't know where your cat is, or whatever, whatever phrases you've been drilling. It's nice if you've got like little things they can substitute in. So you've got the phrase, but then you've got like a noun you can put in there.
Yeah.
Like, I've lost my donkey, whatever. And
then they get to throw something out, and sometimes it's outside of that context, and that's what gets a laugh. Because it's kind of at their level that they can kind of understand. It's like, the wheels on the bus go round and round. What's next? And like they go, oh, the people on the bus go ha ha ha. Oh, what about the chicken? And the chicken, what does the chicken? And and that gets a laugh because it's like, why is there a chicken on the bus? Yeah. I totally agree with you. I absolutely totally agree with you. And it comes back for me is just basically you're just doing what you would do with a native child. You're just choosing small chunks of language and then just going over it again and again and again in as many different varieties as ways as you can. And they suck it in. That's why it's so important to be reading with the with a child just as soon as you possibly can, with good, as you say, like phrases that kind of have small variations. Do you know who's excellent at this? And a course book, if you're watching this and you're looking for some materials to help teach kids in this manner, and I'm talking really small kids, Potato Pals, Patrick Jackson. Those books are fantastic. They're what I recommend for the early childhood, like these sort of classes, because they have those things. Like his book Friends. It's super simple. It's just like friends play together, friends share together, friends dance together, and they've got great illustrations, and you just go over this. But the thing is with the books as well, there's also other pictures that you can comment on. So they'll say, friends play together, and it will be sunny outside. And it'll say, friends dance together, and it will be rainy outside. So those are opportunities for kind of expanding, maybe on the second read or as a third read. That's what's so great about Potato Bass, apart from the songs as well. But, that all lends it to it. And I know I always get these questions because I do more, kids classes, and I always get these questions of what's the best course book. And at this age, I will go out on a limb and say no course book. Focus on these short stories, these repetitive stories that have got these little phrases that you can go over and you can kind of adapt and use in the class in a almost dogme kind of style, depending on where you see the engagement is with the resources in the manner that you put forth before.
Yeah, it sounds great. It's kind of out of my area of expertise, actually, Potato Pals. But I might use some of the stuff myself in my kind of personal teaching. Family members is what I'm talking about.
Oh right, yeah, no. I use it with my own, and they like it, but all you see the pattern in all the early childhood books.
So you're using it with a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I use it with the 2-year-old, but it's the same.
Potato Pals.
Yeah, but it's the same stuff with Rod Campbell, Dear Zoo. It's all the same. I wrote to the zoo to send me a pet. They sent me elephant. It was too big.
Right.
I sent it back.
Yeah.
Those it's always the same. Yeah. And same with all the Susan Boyton books. They have the opposites. Quiet and loud. Happy and sad, right and wrong. They all have these kind of rhythms to him. Even like the Dr. Seuss. I see a brown bear. What can you see? I see a red bird. What can you see? All of these are exactly what you pointed out, and it's in my opinion, no difference between teaching native to non-native English speaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Very passionate about it.
Well, I mean, but I mean, his background was language teaching, and now he's using those books. I think those books are sort of, Picker Pals is now aimed at just native Irish kids, isn't it, or whatever, native. So it does make sense at that age that you're basically doing the same stuff. All right, so maybe the difference would be in the instructions. Your instructions might have to be a little bit more carefully scripted for the non-natives.
Yes, that would probably be the way forward. Was how are you going to present it? How are you going to control the classes if essentially these kids don't have any English whatsoever? That's a whole different board game. But that's a topic for another video, I think.
Right. Okay. So I guess we'll press on.
Yeah.
With.
Oh, I got my name. Today, Auntie is going to give you one worksheet. See? What is this? Cup. First, you have to take red crayon.
It just looks like a blank piece of paper to me.
Mama letter C.
I can't see that. Oh, okay.
All the mama letters should be circled with red color. All the mama letter C's. Now take green color and circle baby letter C. Good girl.
Oh,
yes.
You're doing upper and lower case.
So baby letter C we circled with green color crayon, and mama letter C we circled with red color. Thank you, Anne. So today we are going to write mama letter C. Yes. Take your pointer finger on the right hand.
Never heard this called mama letter before. I'm just thinking of like Big Mama. I'm sure it's perfectly okay to call it the mama letter C. I've just never heard that. I mean, it'd be equally weird if you call it the daddy letter C. Yes, it's big Daddy C or little C.
There was a wrestler called Big Daddy V, if I remember right.
Oh yeah. So yeah. Also, like, is this needed? The big C and the little C,
I don't know. Well, I feel like they've cut a lot out of this class, so it's kind of hard to follow a little bit, because maybe she did, with the writing, I saw with the writing at the top, they had the capital C at the beginning of the sentence, then smaller C's.
Yeah.
I don't know if she was trying to teach that earlier,
Right.
but we didn't really see her going through the instructions, so I'm kind of giving her a soft pass.
I mean, I'm guessing it's going to go on to like handwriting, because if you're going to do big and little letters, then surely the way you're going is handwriting.
Yeah.
Now, I think some, if you don't have a Roman alphabet in your own language, then it's kind of needed, isn't it? And I guess in India they write in Sanskrit. I don't know. I mean, ancient Indians did. I don't know modern. I don't know what. I don't know how you write Hindi. Is it the language? I don't know what alphabet it uses. So I don't know.
Well, there's a whole. I think that's one of the issues with India, was that there's so many different languages: Punjabi, Tamil, Hindi,
Right.
and I'm missing out a whole bunch as well. That's why English is so prevalent there. It's kind of like the business language. So they must be familiar with.
Right, so they would be familiar with the letters.
The letters,
okay,
even if it's not in their native,
All
writing.
Right.
I think most of it is, but
well, let's see if
see where she's going with this.
Critical for them to know the big and little C's, or maybe they did other letters as well.
Start from here. Big curve. Yes. Don't make it a circle. It's a big curve. Small letters, all the English letters. How many lines do we use for that? 4 lines. See? Pink line first. Blue. Second line is blue in color. Third line? Blue. Third line is also blue. And last line? Pink.
I think
Very
they're
good.
just doing the guidelines, I would guess.
Yes. I'm starting
right
from
there.
the pink line.
Yeah.
Look here. Touch the pink line. Curve. Go down. Touch the second blue line. Stop. Children, which letter is this? Mama letter C and baby letter C. And what is the sound of C? K, 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 k. Can you see an animal sitting here?
Cat.
K, 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 k. Cat. This is cat. And we are going to write C. Can you see a green dot here? From this green dot, you have to start and go down, curve, touch the second blue line, stop. Zoha. Wow, very good, Sribala. You're writing so nicely. Yes, very beautiful.
I don't know about all this handwriting stuff. I know they do need to learn it, but I think it's the kind of thing where you could literally just give the kids that worksheet and off you go, especially for C. I mean, do you need to go through all that for a C? Oh, identify the small one and the big one. I mean, I don't think 5-year-olds are stupid, are they?
No,
I think they know that there's a big one, the small
Indian
one.
kids, I don't get it. I would understand it more, with like Chinese and maybe Japanese kids, because they are very used to this line has to be going this way, this line has to be so it kind of fits into kind of that mentality.
Yeah, and with other letters as well, where, like capital A actually looks different than a small a.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But C, it's just the same thing, it's just bigger, I don't know.
Maybe it's just more of reinforcement, covering your bases, just to double check that they're like, oh yes, the big C goes, to the pink and red lines, and the small C goes to the blue lines. You don't know. Maybe I kind of sometimes I lean into too much of like, they'll know this, rather than it's almost kind of like, should we just do this just to double check, just to reinforce, put a nail in a coffin, bury it, drop a bomb on there. So there's no chance.
Yeah, well, I mean, they didn't seem bored, so I guess it must be all right. I mean, because I guess the problem with sort of overcooking something is that, it could be boring, and they're like, "Teacher, we've done this." My impression of students was bad then, wasn't it? I shouldn't do that. Teacher, we've done this. Teacher, leave us alone. No, my went through is, "Excuse me, teacher, we've done this." "Oh, of course, no problem." Yeah, so
sound like a South Park Canadian. "Oh, excuse me, teacher. Did you just fart on my uncle?"
Brilliant. Yeah, I just think, no, I don't know. Not convinced. Sorry, Rakishmir, whatever her name was. I can't remember. Please come on the show and defend yourself. It seems like she's got some good stuff going on there with the ambiance, the way she presented it. But I'm just not too keen on the alleged or the apparent aims for that lesson.
Yeah.
They weren't entirely convincing for me, which might not entirely be her fault even.
One of the issues that I have with these, because she's obviously trying to teach, I would say, a system. I would not be surprised if this Poorna Publications has some sort of curriculum that they're selling to Indian schools or something like that, and she's demonstrating how to use it, how you would teach it and stuff like that. And this is one of the issues that I have with when you're teaching early education, is that they're trying, education in general, especially in public schools, is they're trying to put everything into a box so they can just hand this to a teacher, and the teacher goes, "Okay, we'll do this and we do that, and then at the end we do a test, and that's how we know." It's all standardization, and that's how we know that they're progressing. But it takes away the actual skill of the teacher, to go, we need to focus more on this area. We need to this approach is not engaging all the students. We need to switch this up, rather than having to sound out these words because that's what we think that's what we've been told to do, or that's what fits with the curriculum and books we've been given. We've got to write all these C words out because that's what we've been given, that's what we've been told, that's how it's taught, And I agree with you. There's an extent where, do they really need to do that? We'll go over that quickly, and then let's focus on something else. Let's focus on something more engaging, something that maybe we need to revisit more.
Yeah.
And when I get asked what curriculum, and I say stuff like Potato Pals, they're like, people are like, what? How do I teach this? I'm like, you're a teacher. You shouldn't be looking. You shouldn't be looking for course books to do that. I understand. I understand. Especially when you're new, that you have that crutch, and I do. Give out those PowerPoint lessons. On Team Teacher China, but it's just to get you going.
Yeah. Does Potato Pals not have like an extra thing you can buy, which sort of gives you lesson ideas to go with the book?
A teacher's guide, well? I believe that there is, and
So there are options if you need it.
Yeah.
Because I think the guide ropes can be useful for day-to-day life, and then when you get a chance to focus on some personal, professional development, then obviously it's better to take those away and sort of have a go.
Yeah, I'm poking at that. There's often with these course books.
Yeah.
People teachers like especially new teachers, like, oh, give me a course book that I can follow and stuff like that. And it's actually a detriment for the development, and it's basically meaning that many institutions can treat you as not skilled because they can just throw anyone in there because it's the course book that does the teaching, not the teacher.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, beyond course books, I think it's probably more applicable with, as you said, when there's an institution and they have a set methodology, or, and everything is laid out, and we don't know if that's what was happening in this situation, but
No.
we've both experienced situations where it is like that, and it's not pleasant. It's not fun. It's not fun to teach when you just have everything. Maybe if you're like a day one teacher, and you're like, "Oh," so you want everything to be spelled out. But when you've kind of got your own ideas and stuff, it's really not fun to be prescribed what and how you're going to teach it to that kind of extent. And that's probably why a lot of those institutions don't like hiring experienced teachers, because they become trouble for them.
Yeah, because they've got their own ideas, their own methods, and then they become more valuable because I've seen it numerous times where parents want their students to stay with a particular teacher because this teacher is really connecting well with their kids, or it's just they're doing something a bit different to the curriculum, and the kid is progressing faster, and that means that they want to keep retaining this teacher, and they can't replace them, and that means if they want to retain that teacher, they have to pay them more, or they have to pay them based on their skill rather than how well they can deliver the curriculum. So it's kind of they kind of teach themselves out of a job in these. We
spoke about that with Jamie a little bit, didn't we?
Yeah. And I can see that with EdTech as well, as Jamie mentioned. So it's hard. And I can understand the flip side of that, especially public institutions where they would say, well, how do we measure if the progress of these students? How do we know this person is a good teacher? How do we know that they've just not fallen off a track? They might have a blip in their teaching, and the kids are falling behind. So it's a balancing act, definitely, and I'm not completely against a standard curriculum or course book. I just think that there should definitely be room for a teacher to put their own stamp on it. Otherwise, we don't get the Jamie Keddies, we don't get the John Kays.
Yeah, of course. I really came round to the idea of a syllabus. It almost sounds old-fashioned, but I think a syllabus is great. But it's just nice to have a syllabus, and then for them to say syllabus, and here's a course book that you can use that follows that syllabus. But you don't have to use that. You can do as long as you cover the syllabus, you do whatever.
Yeah.
And that is, I really like that. It's even, there's even some argument to say we don't have the course book, because then it sort of forces teachers to, develop and plan lessons and things like that. But I think if you do that, then you have to pay your teachers for that. Like,
yes.
Teachers should have, if you're giving them a syllabus and no course book, then I think you have to do paid preparation time, because that's proper work. Then that's getting down and making lessons and stuff. So they do have to be paid for it. But I think it's a good way to go, a better way than either not having anything, which obviously doesn't really make a lot of sense, unless you've got a really talented teacher who you can really trust, right? And saying, this is the book, please use the book, kind of thing, or you have to use the book, which is even worse, right? Or even worse than that is when they give you just a completely scripted lessons which you have to follow. Then it's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. Another question for you. A bit of a conundrum. If you are one of those teachers that's at this amazing school that just has syllabus, and you've got to prepare these lessons, and for each, and you get paid for that, you get paid for each lesson that you prepare and you deliver. But at the end of the day, if you were to ever leave there, you don't own those lessons. Yeah,
a funny one, that, isn't it? I think actually to some extent, it sort of depends a bit on the institution, doesn't it? I know technically that's true. However, I don't think I've ever worked at a place where they actually compel you to put your lessons in a shared location, although it's normally encouraged in this situation. The two that I'm thinking of specifically, British Council Vietnam and Discovery Summer in the UK, both of which pay well and have this kind of system. British Council, it depended on the course, but most of the courses, it was kind of a, these are the aims for this part of the syllabus. You can use this, or you can use, do whatever you want as long as it follows the syllabus or the aims. Discovery Summer, they just had a syllabus and they had loads of resources and said you had and teach to the syllabus, right? And the syllabus was based on Trinity, the Trinity exams. So in those situations, technically, all of the lessons that I prepped during that time, you're right that the intellectual property would technically be theirs. Although in practice, it hasn't really worked out like that. Maybe there's some of my lessons still flying around that people are using at those institutions. It's a possibility. They'll be there on the shared drive somewhere. But I've got all of them, and, I've used, see, this is the other thing as well. Like if I make a lesson, or if a teacher makes a lesson at an institution like that, and then legally, technically, that's owned by the institution, but then the teacher just adapts that lesson, right? So you might use one or two bits that are the same, but you kind of repaint it, right? Which is what I do all the time. As lessons start to get a bit stale, I always give them a touch of paint, and they effectively become, a new lesson with some of the resources the same or something, Yeah. I think it would be, you'd be hard pressed to then argue, oh, well, we own that, Well, not really. I mean, and also some of those lessons were adapted from material from course books. So are we going to go that far back where it's the course books who then have a,
then it starts to get into the YouTube copyright situation of like, well, what is fair use? Yeah. What is, how much have you transformed the lesson plan?
Right. I mean, it gets into some sort of intellectual property law. Somehow I doubt that anyone is going to get that touchy about an individual teacher's lessons. I would make sure, my advice to teachers would be always keep copies of your own lessons. I'm actually a bit regretful that I've lost some of my lessons that I didn't make copies of because I thought, whatever, I can just do them again. And then I kind of think, it'd be great to do that lesson. And it's gone because I just left it on the, academy computers and never had copies of it. So always keep copies of your own lessons and just don't really worry about that sort of issue. Like I said, I very much doubt anyone's going to come after you and be like, you planned that lesson while you were with us, unless you plan like some sort of groundbreaking lesson that becomes world famous for its ability to teach people.
Well,
but
while I was in China,
unlikely,
one of the places that I worked with, you had to send in your lessons, a certain set, and there was discussion of using these lessons, the accrued lessons from people, to make a new curriculum that they were selling, and they did actually do something like that. They used people's lessons and made like a book or a resource pack that they would sell. Yeah. So, it's not out of the realms of possibility. It's just
they are in their rights. They are within their rights to do that. However,
how far are you going to go with worrying about that? I agree.
I mean, I would imagine that it's not going to be like a top end resource pack, because having had some experience with coordinating materials between teachers, and getting teachers to collaborate on producing a syllabus, it tends to be very kind of this and that. It's like you do one lesson and you can tell it's got that teacher all over it. This is why you have to adapt lessons, right? Because you go into it, you look at the material and you go, oh, this is kind of interesting and cool, but wouldn't do that, and I need to, and so what happens is if you do that and you get all these lessons together, you find that they don't have like the same kind of style that like a course book tends to, you know? So it's like you do one lesson, then suddenly you do another one. It's like, it would feel kind of, I think it would feel kind of jarring. The materials would be they would be jarred together. So then either there'd be all this admin work of like standardizing them in some way, you know, or you just have to say, hey, this is like from all kinds of teachers and it's all over the place and you have to work with that and adapt it, which is essentially how it would work at like the British Council, where you have lots of lessons prepared by different teachers that have lots of different styles. And sometimes you come to a part of the syllabus, well, often actually, and there'll be multiple choices. You know, you can go for like, Richard's lesson, or, you know, Simon's lesson, or Keith's lesson, or whatever, right? And you have a look at all of them and you go, okay, Keith's lesson's a little bit arts and crafts. You know, I'm not really feeling that at the moment. Okay, Richard's is a bit phonemics heavy, you know. We've got a TBL one here from Simon, right? I'm going to do that one, right? And it kind of works like that. But, you know, if you were throwing all of those together into a course book, I think it would be quite hard to keep it consistent. So I just don't think, it doesn't sound to me like it would be a very effective thing or very profitable thing for an institution to do. So that's probably why you don't see it very much. And that book in China, maybe they made some money off it. I don't know. They're just sort of selling their teachers' resources, you know. But I mean, think about this, Neil. Like, you know, have you ever been on to like One Stop English and stuff like that?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think about it? Because you know, well, go on. You what are your thoughts on it? Because that's a premium service.
Some of them aren't particularly great. A good majority are just kind of like thrown together. I much prefer something like Breaking News English, you know, where, you know, it's an article and they just kind of do all the gap fills and all that sort of stuff. But they choose at least interesting stories and they kind of adapt and, you know, reduce the grade of the reading. Whereas the One Stop English stuff, I think has the same problem of, this is obviously a teacher that teaches in a certain way and is not really thought, well, how are others going to teach this?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just find they're all over the place, you know. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's like going into a clothes shop and like, you know, you buy yourself a cowboy hat, a Hawaiian shirt and a skirt and a pair of flip-flops, you know, and you're like, you know, it's there's some consistency, isn't there? Because that's what happens when you just get this pot of teachers throwing stuff in. And it gets to the point, for me, personally, if I'm using that stuff, it gets to the point where I just think it's just going to be easier for me to go out there, find a nice YouTube video or a nice article and just throw a lesson together myself.
Yeah.
Because if I'm using these One Stop English stuff, you know, it's like I'm going to end up basically doing that anyway. You know, for some of them, other of them, I might get lucky and I download one. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know, that's kind of similar to what I would do. I'll just change this and this. But then you download another one, you're like, whoa, right? And that's my thoughts on that. This kind of, you know, melting pot of teachers coming together. I think it is a good idea, but I think ultimately,
well, I think it really shows the spectrum of teachers out there, because you will have maybe someone that's done the dip or the CELTA that's uploading their lesson, but then you have someone that's, you know, like done a weekend TEFL that's done, you know, like 6 months in Laos, you know, teaching at whatever, and they put theirs on there as well. And, you know, obviously they're not as this person in Laos is not as experienced and has had that background, so they, you know, it might work for them there, but not.
Yeah, I mean, I think even taking experience out of the equation a little bit, I think you just get teachers with different styles, different ways of doing things, and when you kind of throw them all into one pot, it gets a bit messy, and it's like it is kind of a resource. You know, but in my experience of these resources, is that a great number of them just sort of fester on the shared drive. You just get these tons and tons and tons of materials, and the institution's like, yes, put your materials on the shared drive. And the shared drive just starts blowing up with, inflating to enormous volumes of materials and materials. And teachers will go on there and go, oh, I don't know, well, where am I going to look? Maybe it'd be easier if I just plan my own lesson rather than spending 2 hours clicking through all these files and seeing all the different lessons that, it becomes too much. It becomes, So I think
it does need to be tended to, like they need like a librarian.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly,
at least that's why people
yeah.
lean towards these teacher resource books, like the Cambridge Cambridge
Yeah.
Copy Collection and
Exactly.
the Oxford Press one and stuff like that, because
Right.
at least you've got the guide of, oh, this is for intermediate students, this
Yeah.
is focused, the objective goal is
Yeah.
focused on this, and
Yeah.
they're not always the best,
Right.
but they're clear and they're standardized and they're easily searchable.
And the thing is about those things is that they were probably put together by like 2 or 3 teachers, and then they were edited the hell out of them by an editor or a couple of editors, and still it probably needed a lot of standardization by the editors. The editors probably had to edit a lot to make it all kind of look the same, fit the same, have the same kind of feel, So if you imagine if you were just doing that with like that dump of teachers' resources that have accumulated over 10 years. Oh, yes, let's make a resource book from this and sell it. The administrative and editorial work involved in that would be vast.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the institutions, they're better off if they really want to go into resource production. They're better off just getting a couple of good teachers together, in the same room, talk about the style, discuss it, and then go off and make the lessons and, save your editorial work.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the idea of rather than trying to, I mean, I don't know, I can think of many examples, but I don't know which will be relevant to different people. Like for me, it's like when my hard drive gets too messy, my kind of stored drive, rather than kind of going through it all and doing X, Y, and Z, I kind of just sort of think, right, that's now the archive drive, and I'll buy a new hard drive. And so
you sweep
now,
it all under the rug.
Stage, basically, because it's just that work of organizing all that crap. It's just so much easier to just go, right, this is my 2010 to 2015 archive drive. Now I've got a nice fresh drive. Right? And, I think there's something to be said for that. So anyway, the upshot is I don't think people need to worry too much about the intellectual rights of their lessons.
I agree. And just make the best lessons that you can, because it's for the students, it's for the learners, it's pride in your work. We're coming to the end of this particular episode of ELT React, and if you wanted to look for more information and resources from myself, you should check out teamteacherchina.com, where we have a whole bunch of PowerPoints that are more or less standardized, that you can use instantly in your classrooms, especially public school classrooms with large students, 60 plus, and you've got a whole bunch of interactive whiteboards. We also have a corresponding YouTube channel, Team Teacher China, where it's me actually teaching these lessons, so you can go check that out. Team Teacher English, where I've taken those PowerPoints and put them into videos that you can give for homework or for self-study. And we have Team Teacher Baby, where I put a lot of my teaching experience and practice into my own parenting, and you can get to see that style on my YouTube channel, Team Teacher Baby. Over to you, Relentless One.
I just love the idea of teaching large students.
Did I say that?
Yes. Yeah, you said teaching large students. You did then clarify afterwards, though. But,
repeat after me.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with those large students. They,
there's so many of them.
They occupy quite a lot of space. All right. So youtube.com/Professor Rich, weekly live streams. Last week's was cancelled. Sorry about that for the people who showed up and were in the chat going, what's going on? This week is back, and currently it's 1 p.m. British summertime on Friday. It moves around a bit. Go to youtube.com/Professor Rich, and you'll find out. Click subscribe and all the rest of it. And I think that's all for now. We've got some interesting stuff coming up on this channel, such as we've got interviews with interesting people on the way. I think we've got I think Nicola's coming up. Nicola's going up today. Is that right? Or next week, is it?
Yeah, it's going up today.
Of course, today when we record it, now it'll be like 2 weeks ago. This video went up with Nicola. Yeah, then we've got hopefully Emma probably shortly after that. Yeah, so lots of interesting stuff. And of course, if you're still watching at this point, then you're obviously a massive fan. And we are interested to speak to teachers. So if you're a teacher and you're watching, or
and you've
materials
got
developer,
something to say, you want to chat
really
about something. Yeah, you've got materials. You got something to say about the stuff that we covered in the class in this episode. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't feel like you have to be too humble about yourself. A lot of the people that we speak to are kind of big names in the ELT world, and they come across as in these emails incredibly humble, kind of like, why do you want to talk to me? Well, maybe because you've been teaching for 20 years and you do some really interesting stuff. But a lot of people don't think they have a lot to say, and then they come on the show and we find we have really interesting conversations with them. So we're obviously really interested in that. You can email us at eltunderthecovers@gmail.com.
Fantastic. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Bye-bye.